Welcome to the Truth to Power Show on Radio Free Brooklyn, listener supported radio. I'm your host, Vegas K. Jaro, and I'm here with my co-host, Luca. Welcome, Luca.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. Our featured guest is G. Scott Graham, who is an existential handyman, fixing what's broken, realigning what's off kilter, and helping people rebuild their lives' meaning, purpose, and the occasional strip of duct tape. He's the author and career coach, business coach, psychedelic support coach, based in Boston, Massachusetts. Scott is driven to help clients follow their true azimuth, a directional, distinct from true north. Um, when he's not coaching people to be their very best, Scott runs a nonprofit farm animal rescue and lives what he teaches. He does Tough Mothers, teaches son 73 Tai Chi, paddleboards with his dogs, Groot and Rocket, and camps in state parks across New England wherever he can. His daily spiritual practice is grounded in things like anapanasati, vipassana, and metta bhavanta Bhavana meditation. A firm believer in service is the heart of a life well lived. Scott is also volunteer as EMT instructor, firefighter, and master gardener in his community. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, it is great to be here.
Great, great, great to have you. So why don't we start the conversation off about your true azimuth? Why don't you tell us what your true azimuth is and how you came to be inspired by this astronomical term, right? And then how that came to be and
Yeah,
part of your.
it's a term that's often used in orienteering when somebody's trying to get from someplace with a map and compass. For
Mm.
those of you who are too young to know what a map and compass is, because you have a cell phone,
Yeah.
you would have to sit down with your map in order to get from point A to point B and figure out what north is on the map, and then you'd have to adjust your map by what's called the azimuth, the magnetic pull of the Earth's core. And then only then would you be able to get to your correct destination, because there really is no thing as true north in the world. It's always off just by a little bit, and sometimes it's off by a lot. So for me, the reason I include that in my kind of coaching practice and my discussions with people is that we all have a direction that we want to go. And most people are pretty clear on that piece. But what they fail to identify are the numerous magnetic pulls in our life: religion, parents, education, society. The list goes on and on and on. And unless you adjust for those magnetic pulls, you're not going to become the person you want to be. You're not going to get where you want to go. It's just going to be a slog.
Mm. And with all your different callings in life, do you have your? Can you tell what is your true azimuth? What is your true calling?
I think my true calling is to not be bored. Ultimately, I think that that is really my driver. I get bored really easily, and I switch topics a lot, which is why somebody referred to me as a polymath or a Renaissance man. One person said I'm a placenta of information. Like, the list goes on with these
Yeah.
like terms people throw out for me, and it really is driven by the fact that I'm I get bored, and I'm always looking to grow and expand. So that's my vision.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, being a librarian for a long time. I was a librarian, and it's similar kind of concept. We have to be like a jack of all trades and dabble in many different things, and to be able to be help people with their varied requests. Like very wide berth of experiences you have to have in order
Right.
to in order to help people with their random requests.
And that's so true even in my books. Like, I've written over 30 books now, and some of the books are on psychedelics, some of the books are on meditation, and so you'd be like, "Well, that's your gig." But then some of the books are teaching your dogs how to paddleboard. And some of the books are about camping, and other books are about time management. And I mean, it runs the gamut of things that I'm interested in and working on and doing.
Yeah. Um, so do you feel like your life needed at some point in your life did you feel your direction needed recalibrating, and how was your experience in that?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, most recently, the current trajectory of my life really came to a halt in December of 2019 when my husband of 31 years burned alive in a car accident.
Oh.
And that kind of forced me. It did two things. First of all, that was, and it happened right when COVID hit. Remember how awful it was
Yeah.
when COVID hit? So imagine having had a big loss, and
Mm,
then COVID hit, and there you were alone, and we couldn't talk to each. Really, it was horrible. And so that piece shifted two things. The first thing that it really shifted was, as you would think, a core of who I am, what am I doing? We started this rescue that I run and we started this together. So I'm really kind of carrying on Brian's legacy with this. But then the second thing that it did is that it opened me up to realize how absolutely crappy and awful I had been as a psychotherapist helping people with grief.
mm,
I can't tell you how awful I feel. When I think about like 20 years of practice and the work that I did and the buy-in that I had with what we are taught in popular pop culture about grief, I harmed so many people, and it really feels crappy. I can't, I mean, because, and it still goes on, but there are a lot of people out there who don't understand what grief's really about, and I didn't know it either. I didn't know it either until, things fell apart in my own life, and suddenly I was faced with, dealing with it on my own, and then I realized what a fallacy everything that we've been talking about and doing about grief is.
mm.
That shifted my trajectory because
Yeah.
because now I'm on a mission to educate the world and kind of fix my wrongdoings.
Mm,
And make sure that other people aren't getting harmed by the same baloney that I was taught in school and swallowed and put on. It's like going your whole life thinking that the earth is flat, and then
yeah.
suddenly you discover that the earth is round. But there's still all these people out there that are going around saying the earth is flat.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get all this hate mail from these flat earthers.
So you end up writing the Tao of Grief. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Can you tell the audience a little bit about that book and how it might tie into what you're talking about?
Yes. So I've written four books on grief.
Mm,
From the first book that I wrote was about my grief experience with in COVID and learning about how meditation could help stabilize myself. And that's where I started putting out kind of truths about what grief is. I wrote another one 3 years later, cleverly called 3 years later. And then I wrote another one 2 years after that, cleverly called 5 years later. And so that's a lot of stuff for people to digest. I wanted to put something together that people could read through and take in and just read 100 words and
mm,
find something meaningful, find nuggets of wisdom. And so I set out to create 100 nuggets of wisdom drawn from the previous books that I wrote. So although I powered through this book in like, I don't know, I think I wrote it in like 2 weekends. It was not a 2 weekend book. It really was a 5 or 6 year process that I had all the information inside my brain and my heart. And then I sat down and said, how can I put all these out in nuggets? And boom, it's kind of the Cliff Note version. If people, and for people who don't know what Cliff Notes is, back in the day when you read books, you could go to the bookstore and you could get something called Cliff Notes, which had like a summary of the book, main points of the book, and instead of reading 100 pages, you only had to read two.
Almost like an AI summary. Teachers hated
Yes,
those, I remember.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I put together, and it's the people that have gotten it have given me lots of feedback. It's to funny as in strange. It feels weird, but I will see my name pop up on Instagram, and there are people that are putting quotes from the book in Instagram, and that feels like my message is getting out,
Yeah.
right?
So in your bio, we talked a little bit about your meditation experience. Some of these things I know, but I know most people know about Vipassana and metta kindness or metta from the Tibetan tradition, but you
Yep.
also talk about anapanasati and metta.
Metavana, which is meta from the Tibetan tradition. So you're right on there when you say that's just the Pali pronunciation.
Oh, it's probably pronunciation. Okay, so what is the first one?
Anapana,
What is
or
that?
anapanasati. It is simply a mindfulness of breath. And actually, it is the basic tool to help somebody with Vipassana. A
Okay,
way to
yeah,
a way to think about it is that is that it's kind of like sharpening a knife before you're cooking in the kitchen.
yeah,
Because if you have a dull knife, you're not going to be able to cut up whatever you're cutting up, vegetables, meat, whatever. You have to have a
mm,
sharp knife. Anapanasati sharpens our mind, the knife of our mind, so that when we start practicing Vipassana,
mm.
it's sharp, it's focused, it's clear, and you can really work more effectively with Vipassana because of the work that you've been doing with Anapana. And
Yeah,
it's so super easy to do.
yeah,
So super easy to do. Um, it's we all should be doing it.
yeah. Most of these meditations are just like kind of sitting there and just allowing your mind to settle. But for today's society, given the stirring ups of social media, it's so difficult even just to sit there and do nothing. It becomes difficult challenging to sit there and do nothing. And, that becomes a challenge is they call it raw dogging life or whatever, to really sit there when you're on a flight, for example, and when you don't engage with, your media or your phone or your reading or anything like that, then you're supposedly raw dogging the flight. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's amazing
It's
how people
it's
come to these
it's
terms.
crazy. It's crazy that we have come to a point where there's like a term for
Yeah,
when you're not filling your mind full of all kinds of garbage, right?
yeah,
And then now it's a fad. We're raw. Look at what we're doing, right?
yeah,
Because we're so plugged in with this garbage in our lives. And I use garbage as, I mean, it's really thoughts that are not useful. If you're sitting around and I call it cycling through your emotions and cycling through your unhelpful thoughts. If you're doing that, right, fueled by social media or whatever, and it's not just uh, what's going on with the country politically. I mean, you could be doing that with pornography. Right. So it's not just, aversion. It's, grasping for something that you really like, or you see something politically that you really agree with, and then your mind is cycling around that for hours and hours and hours. Not helpful. Not helpful.
yeah.
How powerful have you found Vipassana and these other meditation practices in your life? I imagine a lot of it is time that's spent in silence. And
Yeah.
what has that silence taught you?
It's well, first of all, I got to tell you, Brian, or Luca, one of the things that is out there, another myth that people do with meditation is that it's almost like they're looking for a psychedelic experience with meditation. Like they're expecting, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to, be farting butterflies and, pooping rainbows. And I mean, that's what people are sold. Meditate like a monk in
Mm.
10 minutes, right? Use our app and you will find the meaning of life, and on it goes. And that is so not true as to what meditation is, especially Anapana and Vipassana. Here's a much better way to think about meditation. Meditation is to a healthy mind, like getting on a treadmill is to a healthy heart.
Mm.
We don't get on a treadmill because we're trying to find some existential wisdom while we're running on that treadmill. We get on that treadmill so that we're not going to have a heart attack. We get on that treadmill so that we're not going to have high blood pressure. We get on that treadmill so we can go up a flight of stairs and not pass out. The
Mm.
benefits that we get from the treadmill don't really happen when you're on the treadmill. It happens months and weeks and years after you've been on a treadmill for a shitload of time,
Mm.
right? You have to get on the treadmill for a lot of time, and then it manifests in our life because we're like, wow, I'm not winded. Wow, I've lost weight. Wow, all these other things that happen are really why we get on the treadmill. So why do we get on why do we meditate? It's to be in the present moment. You build that skill set, right? Like when you get on the treadmill, you expand your lungs so your lungs have a greater capacity. You make your blood flow so that it helps to lower your blood pressure because that blood's pumping around. You do Anapana and Vipassana and you're focused on the present moment. And then, most importantly, as you work and engage in Vipassana, you develop the skill of equanimity. That's Equanimity is like low blood pressure. Equanimity is like low cholesterol. Equanimity for your mind helps you deal with the vicissitudes of life, the bad stuff that happens without getting hooked. Bad stuff's not bad. I mean, it's bad, right? I mean, it's bad.
Right.
Bad stuff's bad, but it's even worse when you get hooked,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Um, I mean, I'll give you an example. You're driving down the road, or you're on the subway, and there's somebody there, and they get off the subway car, they turn and they give you the finger, right? They wanted you to feel bad for 30 seconds, right? They gave you the finger. It's over. It's done. What do we do? We're like, fine, you want me to feel bad? I'm going to feel bad for a week. And then we go on to work. I mean, you won't believe what happened on the subway today. This person got off. They turned. They gave me the finger. I can't believe. I wish I knew where they lived. God, could I Google them? Could I? I should have taken a picture with my smartphone so I could look at it. And on and on and on and on. We like punish ourselves a million times over, right? That's the heart attack. That when we're, that's the heart attack of the treadmill. So we get on the treadmill of Vipassana, focus on our sensations, work on to stay in the present moment, develop equanimity, and equanimity helps us keep our head out of our butt when bad stuff happens, so we're not just spiraling down and having a tough time.
That's really, really well said. Thank you. I was thinking too when you first mentioned, bad is bad, but also like with good, something can be good, but the moment that you cling or attach to that, it can actually become something bad. So that's
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
whether when we fixate on something bad, also when we fixate on something good, that can also be problematic.
That, Luca, is my biggest trap. Good stuff. Oh my
Mm.
God. I can deal with the bad stuff because there's a part of mine that says this is going to end soon. Right? So there's a piece of it that is equanimity, but there's a piece of it that's also stoic sucking it up.
Mm.
Right? I'm going to put my big boy pants on. I'm going to man up. It's going to end. It's not going to last forever, right? And so that there's a peppering of that flavor. But when there's a good thing and then that good thing ends, or there's bumps around that good thing, boy, that's very difficult for me. Very
Yeah.
difficult.
I'm
So
curious too. You had mentioned because a lot of your writing touches on grief as a teacher,
Uh-huh.
and so I'm curious now, like how do you help people move from resisting grief to learning from it without bypassing the pain? Because that's another part about in meditation too, is to sit with the experience, whether it's pleasure or pain, right? And then with grief, a lot of times
Absolutely.
we're trying to avoid that. So I'm
Right.
curious. Yeah.
So we experience the grief, and that's the person giving you the finger when we experience the grief,
Okay.
right? And then we carry it on for weeks when we're like, oh my God, I miss him so much. That's so hard. This is not fair. And on and on and on and on we go. Or 2 years later, something comes up and you're like, oh my God, I'm still dealing with this. I'm still dealing with this. You and so the key is to, I'm gonna get all choked up when I say this, to really live life in the moment. So when grief is there, you are actually grieving, cry, wail, whatever that is. But when it's over, then the next thing comes up, right? And you might think of it again, and grief comes up, and that's okay. Have you ever been to a, if you ever, you know what? I recently watched The Naked Gun, the
Okay.
new one
Yeah.
that's out,
Yeah. Two and a
and
half or
I
something.
was 2.5. Well, yeah, it was hysterical. It was absolutely hysterical. But when the movie was over, I wasn't carrying on laughing for 4 days while I was off about my movie. The movie was over. It was funny. Now, I had a friend who hates these kind of movies. I called him up on the phone. I was trying to tell him about, one of it was absolutely hysterical, this piece in the movie. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to do any spoilers. I I could not stop laughing. He kept saying, "What's going on?" I wasn't watching the movie anymore. I was talking about the movie, but I was in remembering that I was experiencing and laughing and carrying on. I had to hang up the phone on him, and I said, "I got to call you back. Get it together, and I'll call you back and then tell you about this scene in the movie." But in the same sense, I wasn't laughing 4 days later. It was over after the conversation was over. That's how we have to deal with grief.
yeah.
And so the best thing that you can do to somebody is when and this is a hot tip, let me tell you, hot, hot, hot. If you know someone who's grieving, it doesn't matter whether it's the loss of a dog or the loss of a parent or the loss of a kid. Instead of going up to them and saying, you're sorry, right? Somebody comes up to you and says, my husband died 2 years ago. And most people say, I'm some silly platitude, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The best thing you can say to that person is, how's your grief today?
Hmm.
Mm,
Right? And because if people ask that on a regular basis, what people that are experiencing grief, and this, by the way, is true of depression and anxiety and anger and resentments, all that stuff, it's all different every day.
mm,
Right.
It might not be hugely different, but it's a little bit different. A little
mm,
bit different. And that helps people realize that, there's this flow of stuff, right? It is different. I didn't have any grief, you know, three days ago, but a day before that, I was full of grief. And for me, the trigger comes up, my relationship with Brian was such that we really had each other's back, and both of us, but I'm speaking just for me, I was able to achieve a lot more having him at my side and encouraging me than I would have on my own. So now for me, whenever difficulties arise, doesn't matter whether it's finance, whether it's an animal died last week on the rescue and I had to deal with it. That's a hard piece to deal with. Um, and and when those things happen, I can really feel the his absence in my life
mm.
because he was there all the time for that, right? And so, but I don't have that feeling now. I had that feeling just now as I was talking about it,
Mm.
right? But now it's gone because I'm not, it's like the naked gun. I'm not telling you the story right now, right? So it's appropriate to laugh when you're telling somebody something funny. And it's appropriate to get all choked up when you're talking about something that's close to your heart,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. So we seem to be skirting around also some very important point here about how meditation might be taught completely mistakenly, or something about meditation's teaching in your bio talks about how one of the questions is about how what we're taught about meditation is completely mistaken and detrimental to achieving the true benefit of meditation. What is it you think is mistakenly taught about meditation, and how you're trying to correct it so we can get the true benefits of meditation?
People think meditation, back to that treadmill piece, they
Yeah.
they expect to get on that treadmill and have elite physical fitness
Oh
in
yeah, yeah.
10 seconds.
That's true. That's true.
That's
Yeah.
what they're sold. They're
Yeah.
sold. So this is what happens is that people are given this thing thinking that meditation is like medication. I started
Yeah.
to say that, right? And and it's not.
Uh,
And so what happens is that they don't stick with it,
mm,
right? Because they're looking for some results 10 seconds into the process. And the
mm,
results don't happen until
mm.
later, and the true results that help
Yeah.
you have a better life don't have. Of course, now see, here's the problem. When they get, Luca, you were just talking about this when we were talking about the trap of like grasping and chasing something and wanting something,
Right.
right? They get on the treadmill of meditation and Vipassana, and what are they? They're looking for something. They're looking for some magical, existential experience. And that they're going to be like Yoda or something like, yeah, now I know answers to the world. And when they don't get that, they like want to hang it up and move on to the next thing,
Mm.
right? That's a big piece that people really I wish people would get. But it sells books to not tell people this. Because what happens is that you end up not getting what you want. So what do you have to do? You have to buy the next book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today, we have a lot of Fandango or Zeitgeist has brought us to drugs as part. I mean, it's an ancient practice to use some kind of drug as an altered state of consciousness, but now marijuana has become, and also, ketamine is more predominantly used in mental health, but marijuana also is tied to altered state of consciousness and meditation. Traditionally, ancient practices in India and all this kind of thing use hashish as like part of their practice.
Right.
I believe you have some thoughts on that, and your thoughts on legalization, your thoughts on how we can use marijuana perhaps in a responsible way.
But the trouble with I support legalization. Like
Yeah,
I was growing pot plants, a couple years ago the year that you were able to grow pot plants, I was growing pot plants.
yeah.
Right. I wrote a book on MDMA and grief, right? And the power of MDMA as a drug to help you through difficult emotions. So I want to be really clear. I am not anti-drug when I say this.
Mm,
Here's the problem. We've put the cart before the horse in America around this substance. We have not, from a public health perspective, completely thought it out. Now, the marijuana people are leading the charge across the nation by using medicalization as a wedge. State
mm,
after state, it's not recreation marijuana that becomes legal first. It's marijuana as medicine. And all of the propaganda, I'm going to call it propaganda because that's what it is. All the propaganda around marijuana is tied around medical terms. Like if you want to buy liquor, Luca, when you want to buy liquor, where do you go? To the liquor what?
Store.
Store.
Yeah.
When you want to buy groceries, where do you go? You go to the grocery,
Store.
Store. There you go. When we want to get marijuana, we go to the marijuana what?
Dispensary.
Dispensary. Exactly. Medical terms, right? All the marijuana industry says, start low and go slow, or go slow and start low, or some other like little rhymey thing in their mind, which is really irresponsible. You know what? We can get more information on a box of Oreo cookies than we can from marijuana. We need to have like consistency across potency and what's in the in whatever substance we're buying, whether it's marijuana potato chips or just plain flour. We need to have consistency across that so we know what we get. We don't have
Right.
that,
Right.
right? It's horrible. And the whole medicalization piece, people, it's not, we should be talking in terms of servings, right? We should be talking in terms of, but instead we're talking about dose. So what's going to happen, this is my prediction, just like we ended up, remember we just a few years ago had people bringing snakes, peacocks, and goats on airplanes because they were their therapy. Like, really, like, this is poor public health thinking that got us into that mess. Whoever think about bringing a damn peacock on an airplane or a snake? This is my stress snake. Anyway, now we're going to get calls from the snakes and peacock people. Anyway, um, that was poorly thought out. So this is what's going to happen. Someone's going to be um, having to do a PowerPoint presentation for their office, and they're really stressed out, and they're going to be like, "Oh, I have to get stoned because I'm anxious." Well, of course you're anxious. You're speaking in front of a bunch of people. No,
Right.
but I'm anxious. This is my medicine, and I have to take my dose. Now, if somebody came up to us and said, "You know what? I have a PowerPoint presentation. I think I'm going to go have 3 martinis for lunch." We'd be
Mhm.
like, "You need to go to rehab." Well, not anymore, because now, according to JFK and or RFK and everyone, you can drink as much as you want. But
Oh, right.
back in the day when it was just, one
Just up to
drink a
about a
day,
week ago.
right? Up until about a week ago, yeah.
Yeah.
There was if you were drinking a lot, people would be like looking at that because no one would look at it and say, "God, bourbon is medicine," right? But marijuana's medicine. Oh man, what a mess! It's going to be a mess. I'm telling you. And you heard it here first.
Now, you've created workbooks around psychedelic preparation and integration.
I
Uh,
have,
what
yes.
what's the biggest mistake people make when treating psychedelics as a shortcut? Because could we kind of get in the medical mindset with that too, to a certain extent, even though um, it's more traditionally like a more ritual mindset, right?
Right. Right. And you just hit it when said you just hit it when you said it's a shortcut. People are looking for a shortcut. And so, Luca, I want you to guess, what meditation technique do you think is the backbone of both workbooks? Take a guess.
Uh, Between Anapana,
There you go. You
Vipassana.
said it. You got it.
Okay.
Correct. You said it.
I was
Anapana.
torn between those two because
Yeah.
Metapama is more like something at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the mistakes people do is they are chasing something when they're hoping that, again, just like they get on the damn treadmill of Vipassana, they get on the treadmill of whatever psychedelic they're doing, and they're hoping that's going to fix all their problems. And it's not going to fix all your problems. You got to do work. And so I put together 60 days of work beforehand and 60 days of work afterwards so that you can really change your life. Because just a one-off isn't gonna, you might as well go to a Pink Floyd concert and get wasted, right? And then, why would you do that? Because then you're not going to remember the Pink Floyd concert because you're too wasted.
Right. How did you land on 60 days? I'm curious. 60 before and 60 after.
That was a random number,
Okay.
completely random.
Because I know
Um,
there's some research saying like a certain number of days to build a habit, perhaps a certain number of days for this and that and the other thing.
I literally was, what should it be? And I thought, I felt like who was it? It wasn't Little Red Riding Hood. That was the big bad wolf. Whoever it was that went to see the three bears, maybe it was Goldilocks.
Goldilocks, yes.
Yeah, I was like Goldilocks. Like 90 days seemed too long, 30 days seemed too short, and 60 days seemed just right. That's literally how it was. Um, could be wrong, but it seems like it's enough.
It sounds like a safe
Yeah,
number,
yeah.
and healthy.
Yeah, and a core piece around that in the preparation piece is really practicing Anapana every day because our breath is the piece that grounds us, right? So if you think about this, if you're sitting down to do psychedelics therapeutically, right? Let's say you're looking for some specific outcome. You want to do this. You just like Luca, we were talking earlier, you don't want to get so wrapped up in some bad trip and aversion and fuel it and go down that rabbit hole that you just have an awful time.
Right.
And at the same sense, you don't want to have such a great time and get sucked into, all the pretty colors and whatever else might be going on that you totally lose focus on what you're trying to, figure out during the experience.
Right.
Right. So Anapana, just like and Vipassana, but really Anapana because it's easier to learn, helps you stay more grounded during our life when it's ups and downs. Same thing is true when you're having a psychedelic experience. Ups and downs. And so you have to stay engaged. And so one of the books I wrote about this was engagement. And this is a great story. It was the 2000 and I think 20 race it was a 10K in Atlanta. And the world-class runner, everybody was like, oh, she's going to win. Hands down, this woman's going to win. Totally trained, totally, I mean, had every single thing, bing, 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 that was going to help her win the race. She was in the lead of the race, but she became disengaged from the race. I don't know where her head went. She was following a motorcycle. She was following a motorcycle, and there was a police motorcycle clearing the way because she was way out in front. And right before the finish line, because they're all there taking pictures and stuff, the motorcycle made a right turn down some side street. And you know what she did? She turned right down the side street and followed the motorcycle because she had her head up her butt because she was not engaged in the race. She wasn't on the race course anymore. By the time she realized where she had, that she's going down some wrong street, right? And there's no spectators anymore on the street. And she turned around and she came back. She lost the race. She lost the race. She should have won the race, but she became disengaged from that. And as a result of becoming disengaged, she lost the race. And we do that all the time in our lives. We become disengaged from what we're doing and we lose the race. And the same thing happens with psychedelics because we're focused on preparation and integration and not engagement.
Mm.
Boy, we're all over the place in this conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like what I'm hearing also is that kind of slow and steady wins the race. Kind of digging it, the kind of like that seems to be the collapse of some of your wisdom here, as opposed to kind of these jerk and starts that we tend to do, like these quick promises of easy finishes, or even if you do get a little acceleration, temporarily, you always burn out, and you want to kind of have a slow, steady progress in the race. Does that kind of capsulate some of your thing? And is there any other secret you could add on to augment that with spiritual practice in regards to what can have lasting impact on people's lives?
The That's a great point. And
Yeah,
that's the truth of everything. There
yeah,
is not an aspect of our life where slow and steady does not win the race. And
yeah,
at the same time, while that's out there, people are also looking for the quick and dirty to win
yeah,
the race. Money, I want to find the best investment possible so that I can do this. And no, you got to save up over time, a little bit here, a little bit, keep doing it consistent. You hear that from financial advisors all the time. Start when you're 20, put so much money in the bank, the rule of 72, you're going to double your money based on the interest rate after you divide it by 72. And that's what's going to help you as you move towards your retirement. People do the same, people do it with weight, right? I mean, look at what's going on with Ozempic, right? That's the same thing that people are pitched to with meditation, right? Oh, that's not going to work. Now you just get the shot. It's this magic shot, and you're going to do this. And you're depressed, magic Prozac. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And so it really, I mean, everything works that way. Plants, just look at the plant. You're trying to grow a plant.
Yeah.
And it's persistence and diligence. So I will tell you, I've done, on silent retreats, I've done well over 260 days of silent retreats. And I'm still practicing every day because the practice is the practice. And if I could be a runner for so many years and stop running and eat ringdings, and guess what? I'm going to have heart issues. You got to keep exercising, right? There's no point in our life where they say, "Oh, you've reached 65. You don't have to exercise anymore. You can drink as much liquor as you want and eat." In fact, they just go on. You have to continue to exercise your entire life. You have to continue to practice your entire life. Meditation, all these other pieces. There's no quick fixes.
You mentioned recommending the Anapana meditation for daily practice, and I'm curious, like, how much time would you recommend that anyone practice like that's a breathing exercise, right?
Start where you are and practice and start practicing. That's what I would, as a coach, as a coach, because this is what's going to happen. If I say, Luca, if I say 30 minutes, there's going to be someone that says, I can't do 30 minutes. Screw it. If I say 20 minutes, they're going to say, I can't do 20 minutes. Screw it. And on and on and on. So if you sit down and you do 2 minutes of Anapana every day, you are further along than not doing any Anapana every day, right? If someone's trying to get in shape and they say, I can't do 100 push-ups, well, start with two.
Right.
Start on your knees and do 2 push-ups, and then work from there. Do 3, do 4, get up to and find your sweet spot. And if you miss a day, then get back on the horse. And so the nice thing about Anapana is that you don't need a meditation book, you don't need an MP3, you don't need some special audio thing. It's just focused on your breath. And everywhere we go, we have our breath with us. You could do Anapana in the grocery line while you're waiting for the grocery store to, for the next person to come up and say, next, how was your day? Sure, here's my groceries. Goodbye. While you're waiting in line, you can practice Anapana.
Is there somewhere you could direct us to learn basic instruction on Anapana?
I can't believe you just asked that, because I have 5 audios that basically taught that. I just created them like a month and a half ago.
Awesome.
And for listeners, Luca didn't know that. Did you know that, Luca?
I did not know
I
that.
didn't think you did. No,
I did not know that.
when I wrote the books on integration and preparation for psychedelics, I've said practice Anapana, and if you where do you need to learn? Google it. Basically, that's what I said in the book. And I realized, like all things, because I want to improve, right? I'm like, that was a stupid thing to say. And so the book's been out for a year now. I have to add this piece in there. I haven't done it yet, but I'm like, I should have these own audios out there myself for people to do. And literally, I do like a 10-minute beginner, a 20-minute beginner, and then I do a 10-minute advanced, a 20-minute advanced, and a 30-minute advanced. And it's just less, each one is less of me talking. That's all it is. I just like, talk less so people can do the work. And when you're first starting, you need somebody to talk more, where's your mind? Come back to your breath, right? Because the real thing that happens with Anapana is we sit down and we're supposed to be focused on our breath. and we take 2 breaths and we're thinking about the president, or we take 2 breaths and we're thinking about what we need to buy at the grocery store, or this or that, and all over the place. But over time, you take 4 breaths before your mind wanders, and you take 6 breaths before your mind wanders. So people think the practice of vipassana, of anapana, is about focusing on your breath, and it's not. It's about it's like saying, well, the practice of getting on the treadmill is about, where you're putting your feet. It is where you're putting your feet, but it's really about increasing your blood flow. And what happens with anapana, you're really increasing your control over our absolutely freaking crazy brains. More, if people only knew the stuff that I taught, I'm telling you, the stuff that I'm thinking, I mean, I'd be locked up. Like,
Now,
really.
are those available on your website? I
They
don't
are,
get to go there.
if you Google Anapana awareness of breath, you will be flooded with that. I put it on my Facebook page, I put it on the YouTube page, it's on IMDb, it's everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is the Truth to Power Show on Radio Free Brooklyn, listener supported radio. We're with Luca as co-host and G. Scott Graham as our featured guest. Scott, we didn't talk a little bit about your identity as a gay man, LGBT community, and your views on that. I want to get that introduce something new to the show because we haven't had too many speakers being critical of some of the things about the LGBTQ community. So you have some critical views as well as some, views of how they can liberate and move towards the dignity of all people. Can you tell us a little bit about your critical views of what's going wrong with the LGBTQ community?
Absolutely. And so, just like with I talked about marijuana and being pro marijuana, obviously I'm pro gay rights.
Yeah,
I'm a gay man and I do like
yeah.
penises. And so, that's just the way it is. But one of the things that happens is that after for gay men that come out of the closet, this is true. You're seeing this now also, like with lesbians and and with transgender issues coming up. There's this like political correctness of what it means to be a true gay man,
Yeah.
and that extends beyond the fact that you like penises, right? If you just say what's a gay man, it's like, well, I like having sex with other guys. That's it. That's really and that's what I came out of the closet for. And then a lot of gay men end up going back in the closets. And I assume, I am not going to speak for lesbians or other folks, but I assume that this is very similar for other populations because there's this like political view of what you need to believe in and how you need to vote. So
Hmm.
like there's no room and there's no room for gay Republicans.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm not I don't know any gay Republicans, but there's no rooms for that. And there's no room for diversity of views around that. So, and
Yeah.
in fact, one of the things that the gay community does, and there's actually a psychological tool that measures internalized homophobia, which is how much self-hate you have for yourself.
Hmm.
And one of the criteria that they measure and they ask you about in this assessment tool to figure out your homophobia is do you criticize leaders in the gay community?
Hmm.
Like what is that screwed up or not? Right? That's like saying, if you criticize the president of the United States, then there's something wrong with your mental health. Right? Because true Americans have to believe this way. That's what they say. I mean, what they're doing in America right now, you hear people say you're not really a patriot. You're really not an American if you criticize the president of the United States. And that's exactly what the, LGBTQ, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's like 20 of them now of inclusivity that's there. But the list goes on and on. And if you have a problem with any of that, um, you're you're not really a truly part of the community. You're not really gay. You've got a lot of hate. And that's really unfortunate because the gay community should be really welcoming. to folks. And so if there's a gay man who is pro-life or anti-abortion or anti-choice, there should be room for that person, right? We should have that openness because, but just like Luca was talking about, we were talking about with meditation, this lack of equanimity, pushing things away and chasing things, that's exactly what's going on in these communities, whether it's, people saying they use the term woke, but then you hear it's the same thing that goes on when people say you're not an American because you're not Republican enough, right? It's the same. It's yeah,
Yeah, these issues are very fraught and very divisive, but the point is we want to give room for people to have their views, and like whatever their view may be, they should have the right to have it and right to defend or argue it out and talk it out and be able to give their counterpoints and their points and counterpoints. And we may not agree with some of these viewpoints, but at least they have the right to defend that viewpoint and have a viewpoint that they can articulate and give reasons for. Yeah, I understand. Yeah,
right. I mean, to me, it's a crazy country that we live in where people who would ever think people would get more upset about pronouns than they would mass shootings.
yeah,
Like, who
and
would think about that? Like
yeah,
that's it's just, and it's all wrapped up in, when you think at the core, it's all wrapped up in my world, my way, no equanimity, chasing things, shoving those things down other people's throats because
yeah.
we're trying to have this, yeah. Ugh.
It was interesting. One of your 10 questions was about drag queens. The drag queen story hour actually is a very controversial thing in the library world where people will protest it and say, "Oh, they're indoctrinating children," although it's well, mainly just to have fun for the kids to have fun. Is the truth? It's just to have for kids to have fun. But you have some criticism as well of the drag queen culture. If you tell us a little bit about that as
Just
well.
just because that becomes the thing that identifies us. And
Yeah,
that's not who we are.
yeah.
Right? You know, there's a guy, he's going to listen to this. I don't know if I should say I'm dating him. Well, anyway, I'm not going to say I'm going to say I'm dating him. If he hears this and then he calls me up and says, what are you saying? Then I'll have to deal with that. But anyway, we've been kind of talking. He's a great guy. We're doing a mud run together, like it's an obstacle course race, right? And he dresses and wears clothes like he's got like this pink fur coat that he wears, right?
Mm.
And he paints his fingernails. And when he posted to folks that he was doing this like mud run, people were like, "What's wrong with you?
Uh,
That's not who you are." Right? Because
yeah,
he's not like, I don't know, flamboyant enough, right? It's how you going to do
yeah.
that with your pink fur coat and your pretty fingernails and I don't know. Um, and um, and he said to me, we were talking, this was actually, I was really impressed when I heard him say this. He said, "You know what? I'm not feminine. I'm not masculine. I'm me." And so those people that are turning to me and telling me, "I can't believe you're doing that mud run," are pigeonholing him just as much as anybody else,
Mm.
right? We shouldn't be pigeonholed. And if you don't like drag queens, you should be able to say, "I don't like drag queens," without being, diagnosed as being, homophobic.
Yeah. Interesting, interesting. Kind of like having be able to define yourself on your own terms rather than listening to the ways in which society defines these identities or feeling pressure to conform to the generic identity of society. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard enough, right? My gosh. Life is hard enough than rather than having people telling us how we need to behave and how we have to believe.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, it is possible for us to
Yeah.
have these agreements and disagreements,
Yes.
so still get along and not have to be so divisive. But these are divisive times, aren't they?
They are very divisive times. Oh my gosh.
So you talk about having a bucket list. not just having a wish list, but as a tool for personal transformation. We might, as we start to wind down, if you talk a little bit about that, a little bit of bucket list and how that can be a tool for personal transformation in the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I wrote a book about that too.
Yeah.
My many different books. And this actually came about from helping coaching clients because a lot of people really struggle. This comes back to that true azimuth piece we were talking about earlier, because I
Yeah.
talked about the magnetic poles at the beginning of this, poles at the beginning of this, not pools that you swim in, that these magnetic poles in our life, and made this assumption that you knew what your true north is. You knew where you want to go. You knew what you want to be. And most people do, but some people don't. And those people who don't really struggle with figuring out what they need to do. A person loses their job and they're like, "Well, I don't know what I did. I worked my job. I worked my butt off at this job my whole life. Now what do I do?" They don't have a true north. Most people, however, can sit down and identify a bucket list. Everybody knows what that is, right? So the idea and the premise behind this is very simple. You go through and you sit down, and you work on your bucket list, and then you work on it some more, and you work on it some more. And after you've gotten past all the superficial baloney that's out there, like I want to be on the Great Wall of China, right? I want to see the pyramids. I want to eat sushi. I don't know, whatever. All the stuff that we're told on the bucket list, you start to hit some really core stuff that's important to you on your bucket list. It might be, I want to see my granddaughter graduate from high school. I want to see my son, get married to whoever they choose to marry. I want to, support. You might have these pieces that you talk about. For me, one of the things on my bucket list is I want to write 100 books before I die. Don't ask me, Luca, why I picked 100. Well, it's the same number about the 60. I just pulled it out of the air. And so that's number one. That's one of my number one things on my bucket list. And so then what you do is you sit down and you reverse engineer from the goals into what your life looks like.
Mm.
That's the piece. So if your goal is to see your grandkid graduate from high school or college, then that means you got to take care of yourself so you're around to see it. That means you need to be part of their life so they want you to see it. That means you got to support them and do math tables with them so they pass their classes. If my goal is to write 100 books before I die, I want to make sure that I'm writing, right? And once you've figured out what you want to do in your daily life, throw the bucket list away. You don't need it anymore. You don't
Yeah.
need it anymore.
Thank you. Thank you. So as my listeners, this is Truth to Power Show and Radio for Brooklyn. Radio for Brooklyn is a 501c3 nonprofit community organization whose mission is to empower Brooklyn's underserved and local communities by providing active learning and media practices, amplify voices through a live global internet radio platform and public art. We operate a non-commercial community freeform internet radio platform, streaming original content by people and communities of Brooklyn on the internet. So, the Truth to Power show is a very important part of Radio Free Brooklyn, which has been going 10 years. Um, and the Truth to Power show is a soapbox therapy where we unearth our creative process with the intention of revealing the truths that underlie our own empowerment with poetry co-hosts and conversation with community members. We go where mainstream media is unable or unwilling to go. We explore our own psyches as much as the collective psyche. Um, we here to dig deeper into the collective soul. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to G. Scott Graham and Luca for participating. Go to radioforbrooklyn.org/truth to power to find out our archives of like 328 episodes or so. It's the 328 episode. So please go there to find out, listen in, binge listen to our episodes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Episode closed.